welcome to Woodward's Watercolours headquarters, the little studio in the back of the garden. I'm Colin Woodward, and today what I want to look at is the strategy that I use to be able to do a watercolour painting. Because as you saw in the last video, we were talking about being patient as we paint. So there's ways that I developed for me, now it really works for me, maybe it'll be helpful to you, to be able to strategically think about how we're going to paint and what sections we paint in so that it gives the other part time to dry, so that we're not going to have that kind of messy bleed where they all go in together. Although maybe you love the messy bleed and that's what you're looking for. I'm not. I'm looking to try and keep them separate so that I can work on layering up, because whenever watercolours dry, then it is nearly totally waterproof. So come with me, and we're going to look today at painting a drawing that I've already completed of the Belleek factory down in Belleek in the west of Northern Ireland. So come with me and let's look at that together.
Okay, so this is the picture of the Belleek building, the Belleek factory that is in very close to Enniskillen in County Fermanagh, and this is what we're going to be working on today. So this is the reference image. So what we're going to do first is we're going to do the sky first, and the sky is going to be number one, and I'm going to do it in a way that is not covering the whole area, and these are my squiggles to show how I'm going to do it, and then I will probably be splattering over there. Okay, so then I'm going to move down and I'm going to look to tackle the water in the river. So I'm going to write water, river. So it's number 2. Then next I'm going to move on and I'm going to begin to tackle the building. So what I'll do first is, so building, and we'll call it building grey. So we'll put the building grey down first, and that is number 3. Then once that has dried, then we're going to, so forgot to mention this bit. So we're doing number 1, the sky, number 2, the water, which is away from the sky and is not coming into contact with any part of it. Then when we go to the building, the sky is going to be dry, so it's going to be safe to move on to that. Now we can then leave the roof here, just write roof, to being number 4, because it's so close to the sky. Just to give the sky more time, then we can begin to work on the roof. Then what we can do after that is go back to the water. So this is the water for the second time, and then it's going to be actually number 5 in the process. And then after that, this all maybe looks quite complicated, then after that we're going to start tackling the windows. And the windows are going to be number 6. Now I don't typically go back to the sky and revisit it, but I can also, if I want to, begin to then add in the details of like the trees and things here. So we'll do the trees, and I'll say trees and grass, and we're going to do that as then number 7. So that is the plan. So this is the drawing that I have already done, and it's been sitting here waiting for me to add some colour to it. So like I said, we're starting with the sky. So what I'm using first is a nice large flat edge brush. We've got the Daniel Smith watercolours, and because it's a Northern Irish sky, what I'm going to do is mix, it's going to normally lift 3 drops of water on, just because it gives me a good amount of water to use. And I'm mixing a nice light mix of the James Grey along with some of the umber. Now the umber that I'm using, just want to double check, is the burnt umber. So the burnt umber brings it back to an earthy kind of colour. And we're just going to drop it on here. There's already a nice splash. We're adding it in. The lovely thing about the flat edge brush, you'll know that I love a flat edge brush, is that I'm able then, now there's just a little bit of pigment to come off there. So with a flat edge brush then you're able to use the corner of the brush to be able to find those accurate lines. So we're just applying that, making sure we're getting nice and close to the building, but not too close. We're just going into all those areas there, okay? And then I'm gonna also bring some other colour and bring it to the right hand side here as well. Now I may decide to leave those bushes as negative space, or I may decide to add some color to them, but we'll make that decision later on, okay? So then it's a big floppy brush, so the splats are coming off nice and rough and ready there. Now what I can also do is I can squeeze the brush. So I've done this already, so I don't want to drop onto it, but I can squeeze the brush with both my fingers, drain it of any water that there is, and also some areas just to give some differentiation in areas of the cloud, lift some of the color off, and then that'll give me just a difference in kind of pigment. The other thing that I can do is also strengthen the pigment, get more watercolor from the half pans on there, and then just drop it in at different places. And then that's going to start to move around the wet paper and sort of settle in. Okay, so we'll do that and leave that there. Now that is a really big brush, and it's really bigger than I would normally use. So we're going to go to my old faithful, which is Daily Rowney Simple, or Simply range, and it's a flat wash and it's a 3/4 brush. So that's step one done. That's the sky done. I'm not going to return to that, okay? So after that then, I'm going to move to this area of the lake. Now it is much more a cooler kind of a black. So I want to capture some of that. Now the water is moving in, just kind of flowing in different ways. You see, if you can access the reference image, I'll put that up on the community page after this, once this has been posted. So the water is doing lots of different things, and it's also raining. So I tend to put, whenever I wanted to do splats that I don't want to go all over the page, I'll put my hand up just to catch those wee bits. Now the other thing is that as it gets closer to that wall, then it is also getting darker. So I'm going back, I'm getting more of the Jane's Grey. I'm going to actually blacken it up a little bit more. And we're going to just let that touch in on different areas of the river and actually bleed into some of those little bits. So as we get closer to that wall, there's more shadow, and then the shadow also begins to come out in just different little sections, and we just want to highlight that with the flat edge brush, moving the flat edge brush around. Okay, so there we go. That's the first section done there. Now the other thing is that the part of the wall, I can afford to go even darker again because the wall has the most shadow on it. And then I can add that just across here. So I'm just going to add that now and give me 2 seconds to get that added, and then we will come straight back to look at the building. Okay, I've just moved my palette on there so you can see a little bit more what I'm mixing. So now we've got this kind of base color that I had mixed for this part of the wall, which is now also dry. And what I'm going to do then, because it's very, very close to the color of the walls of the actual building, so I've added in just a little bit of cerulean blue there. A cerulean blue gives a lovely kind of stone color, and with the corner, this is where flat edge brushes are incredible. So flat for this, obviously, and to do lines for the likes of trees and things, but also the corner of it then to just capture the detail that is going around the windows. So we're just gonna keep moving that around. I'm gonna deliberately leave some just little white spaces just to give that little bit more of an illustrated feel. We're just keeping moving around. Again, I'm just going to continue to do that and not bore you with the details of doing that. And once that's done, we'll jump back to the next. We now have the building complete, and we have the building drying. Now what we're going to do next then, so we've done the sky, which was 1, we've started the water, which was 2, we've then moved to the grey of the brick of the building, which was 3, and now what we're going to do is look to do a little bit of the roof. Now with the roof, I tend to work, if you can see here, I'm taking the colours that so I haven't actually mixed up any really very different colours. I'm taking the colours that I have and I'm trying to notice, okay, so what actually is this colour in front of me? That's maybe a little bit more blue than I want. If a black is bluer than you want, you just add in a brown. So I added in a little bit of burnt umber there. And so we want it to be a good bit lighter. And the other thing that you can do with the roofs is just keeping the flat edge brush. This is why the flat edge brushes are so versatile. Just keep it on its horizontal axis there, and just giving those lines, which will give that sense. Now, I think actually there's too much pigment on there, so I'm taking my brush and I am pulling it, which pulls out all of the water. So I've got this nice fine point, and then I'm just going to go along and lift some of it. So there we go. Okay, now what I can then do, because this part of the building is dry, is I'm going to mix. So I'm taking a little bit of the umber, a little bit of the burnt umber, then some of the Jane's grey, and I'm mixing it in together to find quite earthy parts of the building here. Now I'm just going to increase the strength of the pigment here by mixing those together. And I'm noticing at that side of the building, it is actually the brickwork is much darker. Now this is a really grey image, isn't it? So what I was thinking as I was just filling in those bits of the building is it really does need the foliage, the green of that, just to bring just a little bit of more sense of life to it. So if you're not from Northern Ireland, then you won't appreciate how grey our landscapes actually can be, which has its own kind of charm. But I mean, in the winter time, we're just desperate for some sunshine, because the grey in the sky really does affect everything. So I'm continually referring to the reference picture, and I am just looking to see where the shadows are, and then just going with that. I'm not looking to be a photorealist. I've said that before. I am looking to just pick up on those areas that are darker, and that line as I'm going across here of these particular windows certainly seems to be a darker kind of area, and I'll just pick up a little bit on this area down here, and then just in this area here, and a little, actually it's quite strong there, so let's just drop it down and let it roll down there. So that's that building done. Now, we've got this little building here, which we're going to use a thinner brush for this. Nope. And this is a flat number 12. This is the one that comes apart, but I still like it, so I still use it. And it is a much darker building, so we're going to, I'm mixing in some phthalo blue, and we're going to really darken it down. So we've used umber there, and then we're going to add in the Jane's grey to that, so that it is much darker and distinctively darker than the other building. Okay, so we're just going to, and if you notice that little line there on the side of the building gives me the grace to be able to just add this in without any concern of the pigments or the watercolours running together. So just again using the corner of the brush, I'm going to let this one pull as well. Just carry that right on down. So I'm going to carry this on down and then get this dried, and then we can move to the next bit. So we now have this side of the building dry, and the extra work that we've done on this building here is also now dry. And I may revisit, and just in a little second, to add in a little bit more detail again to the building on this main building here, the Belleek building. But what we're going to do next is we're going to go to the foliage. Now, I'm going to use, I love undersea green in the Daniel Smith set. The reason why I love it is it has that kind of more muted tone that we would find here in Northern Ireland. So I'm just going to add it, just kind of pressing it on here Okay, and immediately you can see this introduction of a colour rather than what has been a really very grey painting. Now, actually, compared to everything present on this page, it is practically luminous, isn't it? So we're just going to keep pressing it on. And we're also then going to do that. That's a different type of plant. So just deliberately leaving some gaps just as I touch that on there. And also what I want to do is just do a little specific tap of colour there. Okay, so we've got that now applied. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go over these little bits of the building. Now I'm going to be very careful as I go anywhere near where the green is because I don't want them to bleed together. But I want to go next to this little part here of the wall, which actually has, I'm going to put on a little bit of Indian red in there just to, it's quite noticeable. I'm keeping it quite low key because all of these tones in this are really very muted. So we're just going to be very careful that we're not going too near the green that we've just added. And we're just going to move this along here because there's actually just a little bit of kind of undergrowth and life just along here. So we're just going to do that. And then I'm going to use again the grey that we have. We'll add in more Jane's grey to that colour that we were using along there just to darken down underneath this wall, which almost kind of frames the building that we're working at. And just notice how I'm turning the brush around to get different shapes and just to pick up on that as we go across here. Just continue to do that. Okay, the next thing I want to do as well is to add more, to deepen the dark colour of that building just on the right there. So I'm just mixing up that colour again. Nice dark tone. Actually want to add a little bit of green into that. You bring the umber into it to, earth it down and to darken it. Okay, and because it's actually the darkest point on the page, so it's worth just capturing that. And we're just going to bring this along here. Okay, so that's just added in there. And then also what I want to do is just bring in a little bit more detail into the building. So to do that, I've just dropped down to a smaller brush. This is an number 8 flat shader in the Simply range. Really great range of brushes. Just think they're brilliant. And I'm just going to add in a little bit of that, a little bit of the cerulean to make it a bit more stonework like. Now it's taking it too far there, so just add in that little bit more of the raw umber again, or sorry, burnt umber again. And then it means that I'll have the flexibility to just add in. Now I have to watch where my finger's being placed there because I don't want to be disturbing where I have placed the watercolor just in that little bit of the, wall there. So just again observing, looking across, finding those little bit. Now I tend to find that just adding just a little line. I don't want to go too close to that green, so that was close there, very close. I'm just going to touch that color, just that one layer will give an idea of that's the side of the building. And also just on a little bit of the chimney there, there's also a little bit of the chimney there that then is just slightly reflected on the top. So just highlighting just certain areas. And just gonna capture those little bits down that side. I mean, by no means is this, you know, it's not a full of colour image by any stretch, but it is actually quite a nice way to just show off tones and building up those layers. Okay, so let me get this dried and then we'll keep going. We're now dry. And what we want to do now is just pick up on this little bit of green field that is occurring just behind the darkest point of these buildings here. So we're just literally just touching it in there, and I'm going to mix really quite a thick, straight mix of the undersea green there, and just gently touch on some of those trees and hedge lines that are coming across there, and that's bleeding in, and that's totally fine. I'm totally okay with that. It's quite intense now. So we're going to go over the second bit of the buildings here, or not the buildings, sorry, the hedges here, the big tall trees. And that will just give us just that little bit of modelling and depth to that. And I want to bring that one down across there, because I noticed that that was just a little bit too blank for my liking there. So we'll just bring that across. And we also have another shrub in here. And I'm going to mix just a little bit more. And we're going to then, I was going to say go to town. Just adding, now that's a much smaller, like more kind of shrub-like. So, but with this one, we're going to add in lots of that pigment, because I really want to darken that down. Okay, happy with that. Now, what I want to do is just tackle a little bit more of the river. So we've left the river really very untouched, and I'm just mixing in this kind of quite earthy black. Now that's gone too far, so I'm adding in more of the Jane's grey to bring it back to a more blue kind of grey. And just along the edge of that tree, or not the tree, the wall there, just going to let it go over the wall a little bit. We're just going to, now the waters are really interesting. They're sort of all sorts of different shapes, and we want to try and track that. And we also want to try and capture that. And where those trees are, it's also that bit darker, so we want to bring that out a little bit. And just continue to go along that wall, moving the brush to try and echo the shapes of the water. And then just across here as well, where those trees are, again, they're actually bringing just that little bit of shadow, just in the corner of the brush, the side of the brush, and just moving it along there. Okay, that's good, I'm happy with that. Okay, now what we can do then is, I really want to, I was just looking really at that roof, so the same colour that we've used for the shadows on the water, then I'm just going to add onto the bit of the roof, because it really needs to darken down. I wasn't happy with it being left like that. Now the green, just need to be careful as I go close to the green here. Okay, right, so, and the other thing is I want to actually go back. I'm just noticing those shrubs just in the distance there, and I want to darken them down a little bit. So I'm just mixing a strong undersea green again and just touching on those. And actually they've dried really, really very quickly as we were working away there, which is one of the ideas in terms of having this quite strategic approach, where you're thinking about, okay, so what are we doing next and where are we going after this? So the last thing that I said to do, that I would do in my plan, is to go to the windows. So we're going to go to a dagger brush of types, or a sword brush. This is an angle, called an angled shader. I do have a sword brush, but I think that that would be too much. So for this, for the windows, we want it really dark, so that we can just really tap the colour on, and the tone on, and the tone's going to remain on the page. Okay, so I'm just going to do that, And I'm going to work away on that so you don't get bored as I fiddle my way around here. So I'll come back to you when I have the window completed and then we'll finish it off. Okay, so I've just touched in those areas of the window. What I want to do with the remaining amount that I have mixed there is just really go to town on adding that shadow into the little wall that is just where the lake is, or the river is, meeting the wall. So just want to go along and add those little bits of shadow in. Just really observe those and make sure that I'm capturing that, because I think that's an important part of how my eye sees it and differentiates the lightest parts and the darkest parts of the picture. So I'm just going along there with that. The other thing that can be done, for in the windows, when you look close at them, they have the little black dots in them. So I may go on after and add those black dots in with some pen. I might choose to do that. But the one thing that I noticed is there's just this little bit of brickwork that is beside, that is a much more kind of beigey, fawny colour. So I'm just going to lift a little bit of the colour that we were using there, the Jane's Grey that we were using for the wall, and just in those little areas there, which I had observed in the drawing, just add those in just for that little bit of colour. And also on the, I don't think it's called cornicing, but just on the sides there as well, they were present down there. Okay, so that's all that I want to do on this. And this is Belleek Pottery, which is down in Fermanagh. If you're ever down that area, do go and visit it. It's a very, very interesting place. But hopefully in this video, I've really shown you how you can tackle it whenever you plan it out and think about it strategically.
Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, what has turned out to be quite a tonal painting. Hopefully you too can begin to recognize, maybe you're doing it already, begin to recognize that you're actually thinking through your watercolor paintings quite strategically, because with watercoloring works best whenever you've the patience to let it dry. I have my hand ready to go to give the example of the layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. I really hope that you have found benefit in this video and that it encourages you to just give it a go or to adopt this technique. But thanks so much for watching. If you're really enjoying this content, then please subscribe, like, comment. It's always really good to hear from you. If I can help you in any way, please do get in touch and do that. But for now, thanks for watching, and we'll see you sometime soon.